Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And in today's video, we'll be talking about Rahu through the Rahu Nakshatras. So if you have Rahu in Ardra, Swati, or Shatabhisha, then this video is for you. So first of all, before we start, we first have to understand what are the nodes Rahu and Ketu. What do they represent? What are they all about in astrology? Well, first off, they are known as the north node and the south node in astronomy. They are formed by the intersection of the ecliptic and the moon. So, this is what causes this nodal axis to take place. And so, the one that is ascending as it crosses against this ecliptic will be the north node, and the one that is descending is the south node. Now, there's also a great story behind the nodes in astrology. So, there once was the churning of the great ocean of milk. And this took place at a time where there was a war going on between the Devatas and the Asuryas. And during this war, there were many casualties, and no one was able to return back to life. So, the Devatas were looking for a solution to this problem. And their solution was to seek out the counsel of God. And so, by doing this, the advice that they received was that they needed to churn this great ocean to receive the elixir of immortality. And in order to do this, though, they had to make peace with the Asuryas. So they actually had to draw a treaties between the Asuryas and the Devatas that temporarily put the war at pause. So during this time, the Devatas and the Asuryas worked together to churn this great ocean. And as they did this, many things arose from the ocean, including a terrible poison that really threw off both the Asuryas and Devatas. As they got to the elixir of immortality, the Asuryas quickly grabbed it and ran. And a few of them were talking it over. They wanted to figure out what they were going to do with this elixir. Some of them said that they had an agreement with the Devatas to share this, and others just wanted it for themselves. And what they ended up doing was taking it for themselves. So the Devatas again asked for the assistance of God to step in to help them. And during this time, Lord Vishnu disguised himself as this beautiful woman who put the Asuryas under a spell. They didn't even realize that he was handing over the elixir behind his back to the Devatas. Except there was one Asurya that noticed that there was something fishy going on at this time. And so he actually disguised himself as one of the Devatas and sat between the sun and the moon. And he was able to fool them for a little bit. He got a drop of the elixir before the sun and the moon exposed him. And at this time, Vishnu revealed his normal form and came back and decapitated him. But at the time, the drop of elixir had already reached the mouth of this Asurya, so he became immortal. And as the elixir fell from his head into his body, the body also became immortal. And so they were regarded as planets that we now know as Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is the head of the entity, and Ketu is the body of the entity. And so it is said that because the sun and the moon ratted out the Asurya during this time of this illusion, that Rahu and Ketu are sworn enemies of the sun and moon, which is creating this effect of the eclipse where the sun and moon are temporarily eclipsed by these shadowy forces of Rahu and Ketu. And so, with this, we can see that Rahu and Ketu are these invisible forces that are affecting everything in this lifetime. Rahu is all about the force that brought us into this reality because Rahu is desire. It is what we desire, what has brought us into this lifetime, what we're after here in this material world. And so Rahu is the Maya, as they say, or the mirage of this material world. It is all about this chase after success, power, fame, all of these external factors. Rahu is all about our external experience in life. Rahu is a very intelligent planet. It shows our cleverness, our aptitude, our ability to learn and to gain more in life. But Rahu is also obsession, which creates restlessness within the mind. Ketu is our wisdom. It is our roots, where we are coming from. Ketu connects us to the past, to our past life experience, and the talents that come naturally to us. On a mundane level, it also represents things such as antiques and our connection to our ancestors. So it is all about the past. It's all about digging to the roots of where everything originates from. K2 is excellent for research. It's excellent for seeking out a deeper truth, and it takes us deeper into our spirituality. K2 is said to be the answer to our liberation from the many deaths and rebirths that we experience. But K2 oftentimes is an area of our lives where we experience detachment because we have already achieved something in that area. K2 holds the flags of our victory. Rahu also is an area that is somewhat of a confusion or a fear in that area because we have yet to experience it. It's what we desire to experience here in this lifetime. So K2 is where we feel most comfortable at. It's where we're coming from. But Rahu is what we are moving towards in this lifetime. And so this creates a tug of war where we are constantly going back and forth between the nodes in our chart. And as you can see here, the nodes are always going to be 180 degrees apart in the Rashi chart because that is showing this back and forth karmic tug within our psyche. Now, also, the nodes tend to affect the trine houses from their position. So, on the screen here, there's an example of when Rahu is in the first house, it will affect the fifth house and the ninth house as well. And this becomes especially true during a Rahu dasha when those houses become active in your chart. The same thing will happen if you put K2 in the seventh house, which will happen when Rahu's in the first. It will affect the third and the 11th house as well. Now let's talk about the Rahu Nakshatras. Again, Rahu is about this material world. It's about this external reality that we live in. So naturally, the Rahu Nakshatras tend to lean towards extroversion, towards socializing, towards being a part of the world, being a part of the collective, wanting to engage in causes that are worldly. And they tend to have an ability to accumulate wealth and to be successful within the world. So they're very much aware of the worldly things. They're very much aware of how to survive and exist in this reality. And this can make these signs very intellectual, very much hungry for learning and knowledge, and very much skilled in business. But there's a lot of desire in these Rahu Nakshatras as well, because again, Rahu is that desire that has brought us here into this lifetime. So, starting off here with Ardra, Ardra is referring to the teardrops of Lord Rudra. So, there's a lot of crying and howling and weeping that's associated with Ardra. And again, this is coming from Lord Rudra, which was known as being a very exotic and unusual deity, but he also had a great deal of spiritual wisdom as well. Rudra is also known for laying with serpents. So there's a connection to animals with the Ardra Nakshatra. So typically, people who are born under Ardra have a love of animals, have a love of all forms of connection and interaction. So, including animals and people, there is a great connection here. Ardra people love to connect with other people. They love to have social interactions, to have emotional connections and attachments. This becomes very important to them. They can be very connected to their family members as well. Because Rudra was very exotic and different, there also tends to be a lot of unique qualities to Ardra as well. These people can be very interesting, very unique, very unconventional people. They can break social norms, can stand out from the crowd, and they tend to break old traditional values that restrict or oppress the people. So this is known as the star of oppression. So these people are very much interested in social justice and standing up for the rights of others and wanting equality and justice in the world. But again, this is a nakshatra that comes with a lot of suffering, a lot of sorrow. There's a lot of crying and suffering that takes place within this nakshatra. And this is particularly because Ardra is found in the middle of Gemini, which is a Rashi that is known for being very intellectual, very much in the headspace, trying to rationalize, trying to find logical reasoning. And so there can be a lot of mental tension that takes place in Ardra, a lot of overthinking, overanalyzing that can create a lot of stress, a lot of restlessness within the mind, a lot of suffering that can occur. There's definitely a need to silence the mind in Ardra. There's a need to find a sense of peace and acceptance because Ardra also can have a tendency to become overly attached or possessive in their relationships and their desires in life. Ardra also is associated with medicine. So you may have an interest in healing or an interest in herbs and alternative healing methods. That can also be seen with Ardra as well. So let's talk a little bit about the Swati Nakshatra, which is our second Rahu Nakshatra. Swati is very interesting because it is perhaps the softest form of the Rahu Nakshatras. Swati falls in the middle of Libra, so it is all about balance, all about harmony, and so Swati people are very much about harmonizing with people, about creating a sense of balance within their relationships. They're not people who like to rock the boat too much. They can be very diplomatic, very kind to others, very peace loving. One of the difficulties with Swati, though, is people pleasing. You want to be very careful of this because this Swati Nakshatra can get themselves into difficult situations by trying to please others, by actually forgetting about their own needs, losing their sense of self through their relationships. This is a Libra tendency to want to focus on the needs of others, to want to focus on if other people are happy, but sort of losing your sense of identity in this. Swati Nakshatra is definitely one that can go through a lot of difficulty in life because it has the power to scatter like the wind, which is creating a sense of transformation in their life. They can go from the bottom to the top. And typically, they go through experiences that make them more tough and resilient with experience because Swati is symbolized by a single blade of grass, a young plant that is swaying in the wind, very fragile, very soft, but has to learn how to grow and to adapt to the pressures of life. Swati is known as the independent one. So ultimately, what happens in the Swati Nakshatra is one learns to become independent and self sufficient. But this is a process, this is a journey that happens because Swati is very focused on other people, very focused on farming relationships. Swati also can be very sexual, very romantic, very much into relationships in general. One of the more positive qualities of the Swati Nakshatra is that it's not just about partnership in the sense of relationships, but it's also about business. Because if we look at the Libra sign, the symbol is actually about trading. It is about balance in the sense of a transaction. I give you something and you give me something in return. So it's about this equal give and take, this exchange. And so Swati people can be very skilled in business. They can do very well in the commercial fields, very well in salesmanship, very well with any form of business. These people are very clever, very much able to do dealings, very persuasive. Again, they have a very diplomatic approach towards life. So they know what other people want. They know how to get something out of the situation and to make sure that the other person also is able to get something out of the situation as well. Swati people can make excellent socialites. Again, very much geared towards relationships, geared towards other people. Swati also is known for having a vast imagination, for being able to weave stories and ideas to create a reality of their own. Swati is very much connected with video games, with stories, with film, anything where you're able to take your ideas and to turn it into this vast creation. Swati also really loves freedom. Again, it's about finding a sense of independence and self sufficiency. So these people learn to find their sense of self, find their sense of independence. And this gives them a great love of freedom, a great love of not being controlled or overly attached in their situations. So let's go ahead and go to Shatabhisha, which is the last of the Rahu Nakshatra. So it is like the height of this Rahu energy. This is a very strong position for Rahu. Shatabhisha is known as the 100 healers or requiring 100 medicines. So it is known for having healing abilities, or on the opposite side of it, struggling with health concerns. This is something that comes up very strongly with this nakshatra. Sometimes Shatabhisha can experience health concerns that can restrict them or isolate them from their social situations. There can be a feeling of loneliness, a feeling of being separated from the world in some way. And of course, this falls in the middle of Aquarius, which is a very eccentric sign that is very mysterious, very unusual, that can break social norms and be very unconventional. So sometimes there is a feeling of being misunderstood or being separated from others in some way. Shatabisha at the same time, though, is all about group situations. They're very social people. They love to be a part of groups, communities, organizations. They love to be a part of something larger than themselves because Aquarius is all about giving service to humanity. It's taking up responsibility and helping those in need. So these are very group oriented people. Shatabisha certainly can have a vast imagination similar to Swati. They are very much interested in things that go beyond the norms. Again, we're here in the sign of Aquarius, where there can be an exploration into aliens, UFOs, all sorts of unusual subjects, even mysticism with this placement. There is somewhat of a spiritual component to Shatabisha, but not exactly. It is more so into science, more so into strange phenomena, paranormal experiences. It's not so much the full spiritual experience, but there is something that is somewhat spiritual or mystical to this nakshatra. Shatabisha also is sometimes referred to as the 100 stars or the sky watchers. So they can also have an interest in stargazing in outer space and any kind of air travel. This is all related to Shatabishta as well. Definitely, these people are trendsetters. You'll notice that the sexual animal or the yoni of this nakshatra is a horse, very similar to Ashwini. So Ashwini is known for being a pioneer and inventor, and Shatabishta has the same approach. You can see fashion trendsetters, all sorts of inventive people, pioneers, people coming up with brilliant and ingenious ideas that are born here under Shatabishta. Shatabishta also is known for having an interest in artwork. So they can do very well in film, photography, in art, any kind of creative endeavors. And sometimes there is a sense of having some kind of hidden code or message that is seen in their artwork as well. They can create elaborate works of art. These people are very exceptional in their skills and talents. And with this, they know how to make money. They know how to do business. They know how to present, to advertise, to commercialize their work to the masses. Shatabhisha people sometimes are known for having very high levels of intelligence. So, again, we're here in Aquarius, where this is a very intellectual kind of sign. So, oftentimes, Aquarius, being the last of the air signs, is known for having high IQs, known for being ingenious, for being brilliant, for thinking outside of the box. There can be a sense of quirkiness or ingenious that is seen in this nakshatra as well. And certainly because this is a last Rahu Nakshatra, this gives very high levels of desire. This is definitely a nakshatra that is all about fulfilling your greatest hopes and wishes. So if you have Rahu in the Ardra Nakshatra, again, this can bring to you many tragedies, many difficulties in life. And you can find yourself being transformed through some of these difficult situations. So ultimately, this makes you stronger. This makes you come out as a wiser and better person. This Rahu in Ardra Nakshatra is all about taking the time to go inward, to find yourself, because Rahu tends to distract the mind with a lot of things in the external reality. So the challenge with this position is to be able to meditate, to go into deep introspection, to find yourself. It is about self realization. This is the biggest thing that will help you when Rahu is in Ardra Nakshatra. Along with this, Ardra, as I've said earlier, has a tendency to be possessive or to attach themselves into their relationships. So sometimes there is a need to have more compassion, more acceptance of others, a need to pull back and to allow others to be who they are. Also, because Ardra is very much about justice, there is a need to make sure that you are fighting for the right cause. Sometimes, because Rahu is illusion, there is a tendency to project your own problems and difficulties onto other people. So, you want to be very careful about this. You want to make sure that you're taking that time to self reflect and to really see things from a clearer perspective. But definitely, Rahu and Ardra Nakshatra can help you in your journey towards spirituality. If you are able to learn to let go, if you're able to take that time to go inward, to really find yourself on your spiritual journey, this will help you. This is definitely a position that can help you to overcome enemies and obstacles because Ardra is all about having the power to put forth efforts to really come out stronger. The symbol is a diamond. So, just like how a diamond has to go through tremendous pressure to become beautiful, you have this strength within you as well. Because Gemini is also the sign that deals with the third house of the chart, you could also have a strong connection to your siblings, neighbors, cousins. Again, Ardra is a very social nakshatra. So when Rahu comes in, there's a great desire to connect to others, to relate to others. This can make you someone who is very skilled in communication, very skilled in business, very skilled in multiple areas of life. But this can also create a restlessness within your mind. So there's a need to calm the mind. This does give you excellent memory, excellent intelligence. You have a very sharp way of thinking with this placement. The third house also deals with travel, so you could be a very adventurous person. You like new experiences. You like a lot of change and novelty in your life to experience new things. You're always open to the next adventure. Again, with this placement, avoid blaming others, avoid getting into the victim mentality. There's a need to take a step back and to really work on yourself, to find yourself, to go inward with this placement. So, this will become a huge lesson within your life. Now, positively, this helps you to grow your income. Again, this can give you amazing business skills, can give you material success. Of course, you want to see where is Mercury in your chart to get a full picture of this, but this can be excellent in your material success. Definitely, like all of the Rahu Nakshatras, you can be very skilled at being very innovative, thinking outside the box, thinking in terms of the future, thinking in terms of what you can do next, what you can do better. You can be very skilled at coming up with new and unusual ideas that can help you to succeed in your career. This could also make you skilled in politics as well, as Rahu is associated with politics. And like I said, this will keep you very restless, very busy, very much on the move, traveling to different places, doing different things. So sometimes there is a need to slow down with this placement. This can increase your anxiety levels, your stress levels. You can find yourself constantly restless within your mind, unable to settle with this placement. If Rahu is in the Swati Nakshatra, then you can find yourself obsessed with trying to create a sense of balance and harmony. But sometimes it's a difficult task. It's very difficult to find the balance that you're looking for in life. And so, because of this, you can find yourself getting into a lot of tragic and difficult situations. Sometimes there can be loss, there can be breakups, there can be divorce, there can be all sorts of situations that cause you some heartbreak. This placement definitely is about figuring out how to build relationships in a healthy way. Sometimes there's a tendency to obsess over relationships and to not fully take the time to build relationships in the proper way. Definitely, this placement's going to increase your sexuality, increase your romantic side. This is going to make you very loving, very much wanting to come into a relationship. But again, similar to the Ardra Nakshatra, make sure that you're allowing others to be who they are, that you're not becoming too obsessed into these relationships. If you have Rahu and Swati, this also can make you very adventurous, just like Rahu and Ardra. You could find yourself wanting to travel, wanting to experience different things, wanting to spice up your romantic life. This can make you very much geared towards relationships. This becomes the whole focus for you, especially when Rahu is strong in the chart. Sometimes you can also allow relationships to dictate how you feel or how you express yourself. You can get into all sorts of battles and conflicts in your relationships sometimes, reacting to relationships, allowing it to rule over your emotions and mind. So there's a need to take a step back to find your center within yourself. And definitely, this can make you skilled in all sorts of negotiation, diplomacy, anything where you are creating that sense of balance. You want to be careful, though, especially with Rahu here when it comes to the people pleasing. So, Rahu is going to expand this even further, where sometimes you can put yourself on the back burner just to try to please others. You want to be careful of this because you're neglecting your own sense of happiness. Similar to Rahu and Ardra, there's a need to go inward. There's a need to meditate, to reflect on yourself, to go into introspection, to not allow your relationships to rule over your life. And of course, similar to Rahu and Ardra, Rahu and Swati can give you amazing success. Again, could make you very skilled with business, very skilled with making all sorts of deals, contracts, negotiations. You can be exceptionally talented in this area. Now, if Rahu is in Shatabhisha, then you are definitely a trendsetter. You are a very talented and skillful person, very clever minded, very forward looking in your approach. You're always coming up with creative and innovative ideas, thinking outside the box. And this is definitely going to take your success materially through your career, everything to the top level. You also like to socialize because, again, Shatabhisha is about groups. It's about your circle that you're a part of. So, this can make you very interested in making new friends, interested in networking, interested in connecting with people who can help you to grow in all areas of your life. This can also make you very interested in relationships as well, similar to Swati and Ardra. You can be very sexual, very romantic, very much interested in wanting to connect with this placement. Sometimes, though, with Shatabhisha, relationships can be very superficial. So there's a need to find deeper meaning and fulfillment through your relationships rather than rushing into them. Like all the other Rahu Nakshatras, you can also have an interest in change and novelty and adventure. You're always looking for something new, always looking for the next new interesting thing in life. And again, you want to be able to slow down sometimes because there is a sense of restlessness with this placement, which can disturb your inner peace. This is a great placement for gaining fame and recognition within society as well. This is great for fulfilling your hopes and dreams because Aquarius is the original 11th house of the zodiac. So anything you desire, anything you wish for, you have this potential to gain those things in life. Now, because Shatabhisha also represents medicines, represents healing, you could be very skilled in the medical field as well, very skilled in scientific research, in biology, in all sorts of areas where you are dealing with health and medicine. At the same time, though, you want to be careful about addiction, about using medications and drugs and different toxic behaviors to try to numb yourself out. So sometimes you can try to use these things as a stress reliever or as a way to escape. And again, the best way to relieve some of these difficulties is to slow down, is to take that time to meditate, to go inward, to reflect. Definitely with this placement, there can be high ego levels as well, because Aquarius is definitely a sign that is dealing with ego issues. Because Aquarius is opposite to Leo, it's where the ego begins to shatter and fall apart as we start to move closer towards the end of the zodiac. So sometimes there are ego issues, there are aggression issues, selfishness that can be seen with this placement as well. And of course, like all the other Rahu placements, this can make you skilled in politics and business. This can make you very skilled in the external world. Now, I mentioned earlier that Shatabhisha has some level of spirituality to it, but not exactly. What it is a sense of mysticism or occult knowledge that is seen through this nakshatra. So, this could get you interested in all things of astrology, of occult knowledge, of deep research, of going into the mysteries, into the deeper, darker, mystical subjects of life. So this can make you very talented in astrology and all sorts of mystical healing abilities, hypnosis, psychic abilities, all of these things. But again, there is a need to make sure that you're using these things in the proper way. Because when Rahu is behaving in its shadow side, it becomes about greed, power, obsession. So you want to be careful about all of these things, making sure that you're using these mystical powers for the right reasons. This placement also could get you very interested in humanitarian causes similar to the Ardra Nakshatra, because the 11th house, which is the original home of Aquarius, is also about communities and groups that are about the upliftment of society. That's about giving back to humanity. Remember that Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian as it spills the water out from the vessel. So this also could get you interested into equality, into human rights, into political movements and causes where you want to make a difference in the world. So this could be a positive thing. But again, with Rahu, you want to be careful to make sure that your agenda is something that is for the beneficial of the good and not something that is about greed or about selfishness. And once again, the Shatabhisha Nakshatra can be talented in art. So Rahu can also expand this. It could get you interested in fashion, into all sorts of creative endeavors that you can be very talented in with this Rahu influence that can help you to think outside of the box. With this placement, you definitely want to be careful of any kind of poisons or toxins that you could get into, things like food poisoning, issues related to drugs and medicines, getting the wrong medications, all of these sort of things you want to be careful with because medicine is a huge theme in Shatabhisha.